The first time Alex heard the rule, he didn't laugh. It was a humid evening in Kettlebrook, Pennsylvania, the air heavy with the smell of wet pine. He'd stopped at the only gas station in 50 miles, a squat concrete building that looked like it had been there longer than the highway. The attendant was a thin man with sunken eyes, the kind that saw too much daylight in the forest and too little anywhere else. Alex had asked for directions not to any campground or marked trail, but to a place he'd heard about in a hushed, half-joking conversation 2 towns back. Breathless, hollow. The man froze for just a second, his bony fingers tightening on the pump handle. "If you're going there," he said, his voice low and flat, "you remember the rule." Alex had raised an eyebrow. The man's gaze didn't waver. "If you go into the forest alone at night, you see the ghost. The ghost sees you. The best thing you can do," a pause, "is stop breathing." At the time, Alex filed it away as the kind of local color he loved, the sort of thing that made photographs more than just images. But the words didn't feel like a joke. They clung to him in a way he couldn't explain. He left the station with his camera bag heavy on his shoulder, the road stretching into a deepening dusk by the time he reached the turnoff. Little more than a gap in the tree line, the sky had gone a flat, cold blue. Allegheny National Forest looked different at night. The trees weren't just tall. They were endless, ranks of black trunks marching out of sight. The silence wasn't quiet. It was a kind of listening, an expectant stillness that seemed to tighten with every step he took off the gravel shoulder. Alex killed the engine of his truck. The sudden absence of noise was startling. He left the door unlocked without thinking, slinging his camera over his shoulder. The air smelled faintly of rain, but beneath it, something sharper. A Thames, metallic and sour, that seemed to pulse faintly in the back of his throat. The trail was almost invisible, a suggestion of flattened earth where deer might have passed. At first, the forest gave him nothing but darkness and the sound of his boots in the undergrowth. But after the first 100 yards, he realized something strange. The rhythm of his own footsteps felt wrong, not out of sync, not echoing, just slightly delayed, as if the forest was keeping pace, a heartbeat behind him. He stopped. The silence closed in immediately. His breath fogged faintly in the air, despite the summer heat. Somewhere far off, a branch cracked. Alex raised his camera, more from instinct than intent, and snapped a photo. The flash burst white, bleaching the trees, and for a split second, the shadows trembled. In that instant, just at the edge of the light, a shape stood tall, thin dot, not moving. The flash faded, and the shape was gone. Alex swallowed hard, forcing his breath steady. The words from the gas station crept back uninvited. "If you see the ghost sees you. Stop breathing." He shook his head, forcing a dry laugh into the air. He'd been in forests at night before. Light played tricks. Shadows became figures, but the temps in the air was stronger now, and the silence seemed heavier. Alex kept moving, slower this time. The trail narrowed until it wasn't a trail at all, just 2 faint lines in the undergrowth where something, deer, or maybe hunters long ago, had worn the ground smooth. He glanced back once, expecting to see his truck lights faint through the trees. Nothing. The forest had swallowed it. The smell grew stronger, not overpowering, but persistent. Metallic.old. It reminded him of the time he'd been in a derelict slaughterhouse for a photo shoot. The scent of rusted iron and something faintly sweet that lingered in the air long after the building had been abandoned. A wind passed through the trees, except it didn't feel like wind. The air didn't move the leaves. It just shifted, like someone exhaling softly against the back of his neck. Alex froze. His heartbeat quickened, a deep, steady thud in his chest. He told himself not to turn around. If you see the ghost sees you. He turned anyway. Nothing, only darkness. He exhaled slowly, his breath fogging faintly in the cool air. But then, something strange. The fog didn't disperse like normal. It hung, almost suspended, drifting unnaturally toward the trees. A sound reached him then, not far away, not close. A low, slow inhale. Not like a human breath. It was deeper, wetter, like something drawing air through lungs that weren't built for it. Alex's stomach clenched. The inhale stopped. Silence again. He forced himself forward, focusing on the uneven ground, trying to ignore the way the shadows seemed to crowd in closer the deeper he went. After another 10 minutes, he came to a small clearing. The moonlight pooled across it, silvery and cold, illuminating the skeletal remains of what might have been a wooden post. It leaned at an odd angle, half rotted. The surface splintered. Something was carved into it. Alex stepped closer, brushing the damp moss away. 4 words revealed themselves, gouged deep into the grain. "Don't breathe when IT looks at you." Alex stared at the carving, unease settling deeper into his chest. It was too deliberate, too recent. The temps in the air was stronger here. He raised his camera and took a photo. The flash lit the clearing, shadows jumping against the tree line. In the split second before the darkness swallowed the light, he saw it, a shape at the edge of the clearing, tall, thin, still. The flash faded. It was gone. Alex's breathing quickened before he could stop it. He looked around, every instinct telling him he was no longer alone in the forest. Something shifted in the shadows. Then, another sound. A wet inhale. Closer. His chest locked. He didn't think. He didn't move. The inhale came again, now directly behind him. He remembered the gas station attendant's words. "If you see the ghost sees you. The best thing you can do is stop breathing." Alex exhaled slowly, deliberately, and then held his breath. The forest was silent. Something moved, just beyond the edge of his vision. A pale flicker in the moonlight. A cold pressure brushed the back of his neck, like fingers that weren't really there. The inhale stopped. The silence pressed down heavy, thicker than before. Alex stayed perfectly still, lungs aching then, as suddenly as it came, the presence was gone. The forest exhaled, and Alex took in a sharp, desperate breath. But he knew it now. The story wasn't superstition. The rule was real, and something in the forest had seen him. The clearing no longer felt like an open space. The air pressed in, heavy, tasting faintly of metal. Alex's pulse still thundered in his ears, each beat sharp enough to feel in his teeth. Some instinct told him not to linger at the carved post. He stepped back, boots sinking slightly into the damp soil, and turned toward the deeper woods. The trail, if there had ever been one, was gone. In its place was a slow descent of uneven ground, a slope of roots and black soil that led into a basin, shrouded in shadows. The trees here were different. Older, their trunks twisted as if bent by years of silent storms, bark scarred, with strange, vertical markings that didn't look like wind damage. Every few steps, Alex caught himself glancing over his shoulder. The clearing was gone. It felt like it had never been there. The air changed as he descended. The metallic temps sharpened, now mixed with something faintly sour, like spoiled fruit, and the sound of the forest changed to no birds, no wind, only the faint crunch of his boots on the damp slope. Except there was another sound now. It started so faintly he thought it was his own breath, echoing in his ears. A slow, steady inhale, then a pause, then an exhale, soft, almost deliberate, as if someone were close enough to breathe directly into his ear. Alex froze. The sound stopped too. His breath caught. The air behind him felt colder, the hairs on his neck lifting. He didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed that to turn would be to see, and to see was to be seen. The inhale came again, this time from the darkness ahead. Alex forced his steps forward, boots sinking into earth that felt looser with each step. The trees closed in around him, their branches so low now they brushed his shoulders. Another step. His boot struck something solid beneath the soil. Not rock, not root. It felt hollow. Alex crouched, brushing the damp earth aside with his fingers. Something pale emerged beneath the dirt. A face that was perfectly preserved. Skin waxy and pale as candlelight. Eyes open but clouded white. The mouth was clamped shut, lips pressed together in a way that suggested not peace, but force. Alex stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. The air around him grew colder still. From deeper in the basin, a soft sound rose, humming low, steady, without melody. It wasn't a single voice. It was many, and every voice was humming on the same single tone, vibrating faintly through the ground beneath his boots. The forest itself seemed to lean in, every tree tilting just slightly toward the sound. Alex's breath came too fast now, and he realized he could see it, thick and white in the cold air, curling upward before drifting sideways toward the basin. It was being pulled not by wind, by something else. Alex stepped carefully, each movement feeling heavier than the last. The basin deepened into a hollow lined with moss-darkened stone. At its center, a faint silver glow bled upward, as if the moonlight had pooled on the ground itself. And there, just at the edge of the glow, pale shapes stood. Tall, thin, still. Alex single quotes, his chest tightened. The humming grew louder, layered now with the sound just beneath it, the faintest hint of inhaling, as if the humming were a way of drawing air. He forced himself to slow his breathing. His lungs felt tight, as though the forest were pressing on them from every side. The pale shapes shifted, not closer, not yet, just enough to tilt their heads in perfect unison toward him. The words from the gas station came back sharp, clear. If you see the ghost sees you. The best thing you can do is stop breathing. Alex's lungs screamed. The shapes stood perfectly still, waiting. The hollow felt like a held breath itself. The silence so heavy it seemed to hum through his bones. And in that moment, Alex understood something. The forest wasn't waiting for him to move. It was waiting for him to breathe. Alex held still, every muscle taut. The pale shapes didn't move, not even the faintest twitch of their limbs. Their heads remained tilted, each pair of empty eyes fixed on him, not glowing, not glaring, just waiting. The kind of waiting that felt ancient, patient, and certain. He thought about the face in the dirt behind him, the lips clamped shut, not from death, but from defiance. It hit him then. This is how they stayed here. Not because the forest killed them outright, but because it took what they exhaled. A faint inhale rolled through the hollow. Not his, theirs, perfectly. In unison, the pale figures' chests rose, the sound wet and low, as if they were drawing something invisible from the air. Around him, Alex's vision blurred slightly at the edges. It was like the air in his lungs was being pulled toward them, slowly, patiently. They didn't rush. They had all the time in the world. The humming began again. This time, it didn't sound like voices. It sounded like the forest itself. The branches overhead vibrated softly, each note perfectly matched to the others. Alex's knees felt heavy. The slope of the hollow seemed to pull at his feet, just enough that he shifted forward without realizing it. The pale shapes tilted their heads farther. The motion was subtle, but it felt like acknowledgement and acceptance. Alex staggered back a step, his boots slipping on the damp moss. The humming faltered, just for a moment, before rising again. Deeper, stronger, and then he heard it, a voice beneath the hum. Not many voices this time, just one. Do you know why they stopped breathing, Alex? He froze. The voice didn't come from ahead of him, or behind him. It came from inside him. It was low, smooth, and impossibly cold. They stopped because breath is a door. The shapes didn't move, but something else did. From behind them, a darker form emerged, taller, heavier. It didn't slide the way the others did. It stepped. Each step was soundless. but the ground seemed to tremble faintly beneath it. The figure stopped just at the edge of the silver glow. Its shape was almost human, almost. Its head was smooth, featureless, no eyes, no mouth. Yet Alex felt it, looking at him, and his chest tightened instantly, as though invisible hands had reached inside his ribs. The voice came again, cold and close. "Indoors, Alex. Must stay closed." The pale shapes stepped back into the dark, melting into the tree line without a sound. The taller figure stepped forward. The humming dropped into silence. The forest felt like it had stopped breathing altogether. Alex's vision swam. The figure was close now, its smooth head inches from his own, and in the suffocating silence, he heard it again. "Breathe." The word wasn't a command, it was a promise. Alex's lungs burned. Every second felt longer than the last. The forest didn't just want his air, it wanted the moment he gave it. He understood then. The hollow didn't kill quickly, it waited for you to give yourself to it. The figure's smooth head tilted slightly, and Alex felt his control slipping. The forest's silence wasn't empty, it was pressurized. Alex felt it settle against his skin like cold water, soaking in through his pores. Every heartbeat seemed louder than it should be. Every muscle screamed to move, to run, to do something. But his body was caught in the gravity of the figure before him. Its smooth head tilted farther, as if listening to something only it could hear. A faint shift passed through the trees, the smallest whisper of movement. Alex's eyes flicked sideways. The pale shapes had returned, dozens of them, standing in the shadows at the edge of the hollow, all perfectly still, all perfectly silent. And then, as if to prove they were not still at all, they leaned forward in perfect unison, not closer, just leaning. Alex's chest seized. The air inside him felt heavier, like it was being drawn, not by force, but by a slow, unrelenting current. He clamped his jaw, forcing his breath still. The figure's smooth head shifted toward him. Again another sound joined the silence. Low, wet. It was the inhale again, deeper this time, as if every pale shape was breathing in at once. The trees themselves seemed to bend ever so slightly toward the basin. Alex's vision shimmered at the edges. The air here wasn't just cold. It tasted wrong. Every inhale he'd taken since entering the hollow felt like it had been filtered through stone and soil. The truth coiled cold in his thoughts. This place was not airless. It was full of other people's breath. The voice came again. It wasn't louder. Now it was closer. "You carry it in with you, the air that is yours, the promise that is yours." Alex's spine felt like it was being pulled forward by the words alone. "You will leave it here." A flicker of movement at his feet drew his eyes down. The soil was shifting slowly, gently, as though something beneath the surface was pressing upward. Fingers broke through, pale, thin, half-transparent. They curled against the earth, not reaching for him, but holding on. Faces surfaced next, dozens of them, their features blurred by soil, mouths clamped shut so tightly the skin at the corners cracked. Their eyes were open, watching him. The figure stepped closer. Alex's head swam, the world tilting slightly. The humming started again, low and deep, and this time it vibrated through the ground into his knees. The pale shapes leaned closer still. The figure's smooth head tilted, just inches from his face, and the voice came again. "Breathe." The word stretched in his skull like a crack opening in ice. Alex felt the edges of his control slipping, the burn in his lungs turning sharp, unbearable. If he breathed, the forest would take it. If he didn't, he wasn't sure there was another choice. The world narrowed to a pulse. Alex's vision quivered at the edges, colors draining to a pale silver gray, like the light in the hollow. The cold pressed deeper into his chest, heavy, sinking, as if the forest were slowly replacing the air inside him with its own weight. His jaw ached from keeping it shut. His ribs burned. The pale shapes leaned farther, their forms barely human in the moonlight. Their heads were all tilted at the same impossible angle, as though the sound of his heart was the only thing they could hear. Every single one of them inhaled again, the sound soft, wet, endless. The soil shifted more. The faces beneath the earth were closer to the surface now. Their eyes tracked him, their mouths trembling slightly. Not open, not yet. The voice came again, quieter this time, almost a whisper against his ear. You cannot hold it forever, Alex. He didn't know if his knees were bending from weakness or because the hollow was pulling him down. The figure's smooth head tilted until it was almost touching his. Its presence wasn't cold anymore, it was empty, like leaning close to an open void. Alex's chest spasmed, a small sound caught in his throat, almost breaking the seal of his lips. The pale shapes inhaled harder. The faces in the dirt trembled, their lips twitching as if about to part. The voice again, silk and stone. When you give it to us, you will not need it again. The humming deepened into a single resonant tone, vibrating his bones. The hollow was leaning in now. Everything in him screamed to breathe. The pain in his chest was raw, desperate, primal. The kind of pain that strips away thought and leaves only instinct. And in that agony, a dangerous thought broke through the panic. Maybe there was another way to give the forest his breath, without giving himself. Alex's ribs felt like they were splintering. Black flecks swam at the edges of his vision, each pulse of his heart heavy and unsteady. The figure leaned in closer still, its smooth face nearly touching his. The pale shapes inhaled in unison, the sound of wet pulling that scraped against his bones. The hollow waited for him to break, and then Alex's fingers brushed something hard at his side. The camera still strapped to his wrist, still intact, still holding the last few flashes. A reckless thought surged through him. If the forest wanted his breath, maybe he could give it another way. Not into the air, not into the open, but into the camera. His chest convulsed. He yanked the camera up, the strap nearly tearing at his skin. The figure didn't move, it only tilted its head, curious. Alex exhaled, sharply, forcing the air from his lungs directly into the microphone. The flash burst. White light exploded through the hollow. The pale shapes recoiled, heads snapping back as the light cut through them. The faces in the dirt twisted, eyes squeezing shut. The smooth figure staggered, just slightly, a thin fissure rippling across its blank surface. The humming cracked, the tone shattering into fragments that scattered through the trees. Alex's chest heaved. He exhaled again, another breath, sharp, ragged, directly into the camera. Another flash. The hollow lurched, the soil collapsing inward like it was. Gasping, the pale shapes slid backward into the tree line, their movements blurring into mist. The smooth figure straightened, its head splitting just faintly as it leaned close one last time. You will come back for it. And then it stepped back. The hollow was gone. The trees were gone. Alex was on the roadside, his truck idling exactly where he had left it. The camera hung heavy in his hand. For a long moment, he couldn't move. The forest behind him was silent. Then from the camera he heard it, a slow, wet inhale. He dropped it on the passenger seat, slammed the truck door, and drove until the road broke into the first light of dawn. He didn't look back. Weeks later, when he uploaded the photos, every image was black. Every audio file held the same sound, breathing. Some nights, long after, he woke in his apartment to find the air cold, his chest tight. From the dark corner of the room, a familiar voice would whisper, "You will come back for it."